CLK 320, 3.2 liter V6, so this is going to apply to the W210, maybe the W163, W202 and 203 that did have the V6 engine. This is engine mounts, left and right, and they're pretty tight access. If I'm looking from the top here, you can see straight down under the exhaust manifold. Can't even really see that. See the shiny part up there? And on the driver's side, I've removed the airbox. You can see a little easier. Again, it's just down. I can barely even get my hand on it. Down right in front of my finger, the top of the engine mount, right behind the alternator. So I've jacked the car up, put it on jack stands, and bear with me for 2 seconds. So I've removed the splash pan underneath the car, and I've got a jack underneath the engine, the oil pan sump. I've got a hockey puck in there to keep it from, again, sorry for the light, working under a car, don't have a lot of light. A hockey puck to keep, just to spread out the weight on the jack and to keep from damaging the oil sump. So what we're going to have to do is loosen the lower engine mount. So from underneath the car, you can see that. Can you? Oops, my headlamp went off and died. Red? No, that's not what we want. There we go. That shiny round thing right there, that is the engine mount. These are pretty easy to do on the 4-cylinder cars. You can do it all from up top. The V6 is quite a bit different because you've got 2 exhaust manifolds on each side. You got an exhaust manifold on each side. So we're going to, in the lower front suspension housing, there is a access hole in here. And in there you can see there's a 13mm bolt for the bottom engine mount. So we're going to loosen that and then jack up the engine a bit so we can get to the top engine bolt from the top. So I'm merely going to loosen as in remove the lower bolt. There's no tension on the engine right now. I have no weight sitting on the jack. It's just right under there and snugged up. So I'm going to remove that bolt and I'll be back in a minute. We'll jack the engine up. Okay, so there's the lower bolt. And we are going to trying to jack up one side as opposed to the other, so we've got more weight on this end. And we're gently going to lift the engine until we get a bit of access. Now if you've got there's a plastic coupler here that holds on to the rad hose. Unhook the rad hose from that, the upper rad hose from that, because that will put a lot of strain on the coupler and possibly break it. So if you can see straight down there, that roundish looking thing right in front of my finger, that round silvery thing, that's the engine mount. So that's where we have to get under to, so we're going to jack up to get access to that. So I'm going to put this camera down somewhere and see if you can't watch while we jack it up and see if we can get some space. You don't need a hell of a lot. Did you hear that? That was the engine mount itself. I think it's pretty, it's fluid filled, so I think that was the pop of, like a cut opening up in it. Not 100% sure. But anyway, I can get my hand now down into there and onto the top nut, and we will do that in 2 seconds. Okay, for a tiny bit easier access on this side, I'm just lifting the washer bottle out of the way a little bit to remove the top plastic 10mm nut and the level sensor for the coolant. Slide that off, and then you can pick the whole coolant bottle up and kind of rotate it up out of the way and give yourself another couple of inches to work on down there. And back in 1 minute. Okay, the top bolt is a 16mm And if you don't have a 16 millimeter, a 5/8 or a Imperial will work. And I've loosened it, which isn't all that hard, but it's just fiddly to get in there, that's all. It's not hard, this isn't a hard job, this is a fiddly job, more than anything. So, there comes that upper nut coming off. Actually, this one was a little loose, which is odd. It wasn't on there very tight. I barely had to put any pressure on it, which might have been why. One of the things you're going to feel when you have engine mounts gone is either your a clunk in the front end, or if you start the car and there's a lot of rattling, like you can hear something hitting the frame, which is more than likely going to be the exhaust. A lot of times it is the engine mount. If you can hear that, that was just the bolt falling, or the mount falling off, because I got the bolt off. And I don't need to remove that bolt and heat shield. That can stay on there. But when you start the car, if you get a rattle that just doesn't happen any other time, you can hear something actually hitting the frame. It's probably an engine mount. And an engine mount, once they're worn, I mean, this has got almost 300,000 kilometers on this car. Guaranteeing these are probably the original mounts, and once they're worn out, the engine shakes around a lot, and it can cause bumps and clunks when driving, a lot of weight transfer, and there'll be a huge difference when you put engine mounts on. You'll notice a lot more solid handling and less bumping and clunking. Anyway, I've loosened that lower bolt, and now I'm just going to go in the bottom and pop the mount out, and we'll take a look at it. It's very easy to just slip it out in the bottom. I don't even need to show you that. Okay, of course, nothing's ever as simple as it seems. That mount did not just pop out the bottom. Got to loosen the engine ground strap. There's a 12mm bolt here on the bottom of the control arm, or the control arm of the control arm mount, the center chassis mount. And then at the top, see the top of the wire, there's another 12mm bolt there. Okay, there's a special Torx bit for the center tensioner pulley to take the tension off the engine, which I don't have. And so you can simply use a pry bar, and as I'm doing, you can see I'm prying the tensioner, taking the tension off of it, and pry that forward and remove the belt. Three bolts on the compressor, one up top, two, my finger's on it there, and the third one, crap, right on the, back of the compressor right there. See that one bolt right in front of my finger? Three. You're not going to unhook the compressor, you're just taking the three bolts out so we can move it forward and get the mount past. Okay, so I'm just taking the back compressor, the third compressor bolt out. It's a 10mm. It's one of the reverse Torx bits, but you can, and if you notice there is Loctite on there, which we'll be putting on when we're done. This compressor's loosened. We can move that slightly forward. And now our stubborn ass mount, which just popped into the back, can finally come out. It better finally frickin' come out. You've got to be kidding me. Okay. There we go. Mount out. Okay. Well, that's a little bit of a bitch. Old and new. Let's set them side by side and check the height. Not much difference there. Although the old, let's just push on a little bit. I don't see any cracking or anything. Well, oh yeah, there's cracking along there. So I guess it was getting kind of old. one's a lot softer. Well, not a lot, not a ton, but I'm not putting 500-600 pounds of engine on it. So this is passenger side mount. As I said, compressor out, AC compressor out, and jack up the engine on that side, and air compressor out. That's about it. I'll let you know if there's any weirdo. Obviously, installation is just reverse. Don't need that silicone rubber heat shield with the new one. There is a heat shield with that comes on the car with it. You can stick it on if you want, but I don't see a point to it since the factory didn't. So I'm going to stick that back, the new one back in and on, and back in a few minutes. Now when you're putting the new mount on, you're going to put it in obviously from the bottom, the same way you pulled the other one out. And this little mounting tab, goes toward the outside of the car. There's a little tab that matches up, a little slot that matches up on the top upper engine mount, and those two have to be locked in together. And then put the upper mounting bolt back in. Don't forget the heat shield. And I'm just going to put this one on and tighten that up, and we'll be back in a minute. Okay, I'm just tightening the top engine mount now. About 40 foot-pounds, which is going to be tough to get a torque wrench in here. So just about half as tight as you would do a lug nut. It's hard to get this socket to stay on there too. Bit of a beach. Anyway, stay on there, nut. So torque that one up and then lower the engine and torque up the. Oh, first I've got to reconnect the AC compressor. Back in a few minutes. Okay, the 3 compressor bolts are now back on, Loctited and tightened down to about 20 pound-feet or foot-pounds, and I'm now just going to tighten back up the 13 mil. I think I said 12 earlier. It's a 13 on the ground strap, the one that goes to the cross member and up to the side of the engine up there. The mount is in, upper mount is in, and torqued to 40 foot-pounds. I'm going to put the lower in. I'm going to leave the lower out actually for now until I do the other side. I prefer to only have one unhooked at a time, but it appears for access in this car, you have to have them both unhooked. So I'm just going to do up these 2 bolts and back in a minute. Sorry again about the lighting. It's now getting dark out. So it's been about 2 hours on this side just trying to fiddle that damn mount out. It was the hardest part, getting the damn mount out, finding room to get it out of here. So I'll be back. Okay, negative battery cable's unhooked, and you're going to have to remove the top 12 mil bolt and the bottom, see it behind the hose right there, 12 mil bolt. We're not taking the alternator out, we're not removing it, we are just moving it, giving it, loosening it, taking the bolts out so we can drop it down, because we can't get behind here to that engine mount. There's no other way to do this, unfortunately, that I can find anyway. If anyone knows a better way, please let me know. But apologize for the light, it's dark, and I'm doing this now, and that's all I can do. Do it when I do it. Anyway, this is also how to remove your alternator. Other than the plugs at the back, which are self-explanatory when you get to them. But same if you're removing your alternator, disconnect the negative battery cable before you do it. Anyway, the battery cable is disconnected, and we will be back in a minute once this alternator is unbolted. So now you can see that I merely rotated the alternator down out of the way. May have to pull it all the way out of that bracket in order to get the top engine mount off, or the engine mount out of there. More than likely I actually will. But anyway, for now, I'm just going to go to that top mount, that 16mm bolt on the engine mount on this side. Back. On the passenger side has a nice surprise, nice and easy surprise. On the back here, there's a heat shield covering up the steering gear covering up the pitman arm, and it's flexible. Just pull it up, bend it up out of the way, poof, mount comes right out the back. Easy peasy, done. I'm going to pull that one out and put the other one in. It's so easy to do this, I don't even need to show you anything. This is great. I am very happy about this side. Back in a minute. Okay, on the home stretch now. Thank God the passenger side is so much simpler, easier to get the mount out of anyway. Make sure to bend that heat shield back down, the one in the back, over top of the O2 sensors and the pitman arm. And the mount is on. The little tab is located in the outer part of the upper mount. Little tab that I showed you earlier on the other side. And now it's just a matter of tightening the top mount to 40 foot-pounds and back in. Okay, upper and lower alternator bolts going back in. Note that these are 11mm sockets, so they are not going to require a ton of torque. Around 25 foot-pounds. That's about it. And on the bottom one there is a bracket that holds the wiring away from the belts and stuff down here. So make sure the belts are routed behind and the little mount is, the little bracket is pushing the belts, holding them in. There should be a hole in one and it'll be pointing up. That's where this originally popped into, but someone in the past has snapped that. So that's going to be zip tied back on so that water pump bolt or water bolt, coolant bolt, hose bolt. Sorry, half asleep now. It's been like 3.5 hours out here. But hopefully I did all the hard work for you by figuring out how the hell to do this. I didn't bother consulting WIS for this. I figured it was easy enough without it, and they would probably tell me to use all kinds of factory tools. So, anyway, alternator bolts going back in a minute. Okay, drive pulley belt is now back on and routed in the proper order. You did check and write down your proper order, didn't you, before you pulled yours out? I hope you did. Anyway, that's back on. Now I'm just going to lower the car and put the two bottom mount bolts in, and those are about 22 foot-pounds of torque on those, and I'll be back in a minute. Pound-feet, foot-pounds, I always get it backwards. Anyway, back in a minute. Okay, now that that's all done, you're just going to look around and make sure there's no hoses, wires, or whatever squished by lifting and lowering the engine. Never know. I don't think there are, so I'm going to obviously put the washer bottle back in and the air filter box back in, bolt everything back up, and you'll see another video because I'm going to be doing the rear mount as well. Just can't make this video too long or else nobody will watch it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully it helped.